Hello all, welcome to our presentation, Keep Your Dealership from Being Hacked. The simple mistakes dealers make with their data that no one is talking about. I'm Mike Perkins, your presenter, and I hope this short video will bring you some value and inspire you to think about your security as an important part of your revenue stream. Most dealers are focused heavily on their offense and do a great job of moving the ball down the field. However, it's difficult to do so if you're having to focus partially or completely on defense because of a hack or breach. Or worse, if you're completely taken out of the game for a while. You see, being open for business is a critical part of any company's USP, and many dealers have found themselves unable to conduct business due to an attack or seriously hindered when they become the subject of a privacy lawsuit. You don't hear much about these because of the stigma involved with the public knowing you've lost their data. Most dealers are not exactly willing to go public and let everyone know they failed to protect their customers, not to mention the potential legal ramifications. In the latter part of this video, we're going to discuss a dealership that was one of the few that was willing to go public. We'll talk about their losses and how they were compromised. You may be asking, who are you and why should I have to care what you say? My name is Mike Perkins. I am a certified CISM. My official title is I'm a Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO. I have over 25 years of experience in automotive IT. I studied cybersecurity and hold an EC in Management and Strategy from MIT. And I have 10 major certifications ranging from standard IT, cybersecurity, to business application. Yeah, your typical computer nerd, right? Well, sort of. Here's my story. I did not like school, and I figured that I wanted to be in the car business. So after watching Cadillac Man, I went to work for Landmark Chevrolet in Houston, Texas. The industry was a bit different back then, and part of being a successful salesman was standing out on the lot and shagging ups. And while standing out there one day, I realized that I was cold, and it seemed like every deal that I did, one of the older, more seasoned salesmen got on the deal. Like I said, it was a little bit different industry back then, and so splitting deals was kind of a common thing for a teenage car salesman. I went back to school, and honestly, I can say I've been in school ever since. That's just part of staying relevant in the IT industry, is that you're constantly going to school, updating your certifications and qualifications. And so, joke's on me, person who didn't like school has ended up in school for his entire career. In 1995, I met a fellow named Ken Harrelson from a company called BASF. Their idea was that they were going to come in and take over the body shop paint business, and part of their plan was to install new networks in dealerships. And I got reintroduced back into the car business as a supporting cast, and I've been there ever since. I love the car business. There's an energy and excitement to making automotive dreams come true, and I get to play a role in making this happen. If you're a local dealer to Houston, Texas, you've probably seen some of my publications I've authored. 7 questions to ask your IT, 5 ways your IT is holding your dealership back, or you may have seen some of our cybersecurity education materials like our wall canvas or cyber tip card series that we distributed. My goal, my ambition is to educate leaders in the automotive industry by breaking complex concepts down into normal everyday language. I love the challenge of taking IT talk and converting it to real people talk, and one of the ways I do that is by creating understandable analogies to illustrate the ideas I want to communicate, so leaders can make intelligent business decisions about complex IT issues. Our back-end security team has audited over 2,000 networks in the last 12 months, and in being part of some of those, I can tell you where people were going wrong when it comes to protecting themselves and being able to make sure their insurance policy covers them in the event of an unthinkable attack. Before we get started, I'm going to go over some steps you can take to protect your business. Do me a favor, grab something to write with. There's going to be some things that you may want to jot down. The concepts we're going to be talking about today. Number 1 is believing antivirus is enough. Number 2, missing the warning signs. And number 3, not seeking validation. I'll go into more depth of each of these, but let's start with believing antivirus is enough. This is an interesting fact. 75% of all ransomware victims report having up-to-date antivirus. So what does that mean? That 3 out of the 4 victims of ransomware all had current antivirus that was up to date. And what does that mean? Well, they were operating thinking they were safe. They were investing in their security, and the attackers still got in. How did this happen? Well, hackers can bypass antivirus. Their methods that they use are constantly evolving. They're changing tactics. Antivirus is like your immune system. Antivirus looks for patterns in files, and if antivirus has not seen a pattern before or a file, it assumes that it's good. And hackers are constantly changing their files, and antivirus just can't keep up. How does that happen? Well, even artificial intelligence needs to learn, making it slower to respond than the hackers. So in security, what worked yesterday does not work today. And going back to, if antivirus and firewalls are your only defensive strategy, that's a losing strategy. Now let's talk about a small dealership in Florida that was the victim of a ransomware attack. This story's been told often because the owner was one of the very few that were willing to go public. In this case, no customer data was accessed, and there was no concern for legal action. There is, however, a small group up in the Northeast that is the subject of a $5 million class action lawsuit as a result of customer data getting accessed. So in the Florida case, what happened was a BDC employee opened what appeared to be a harmless email sent by a colleague. And what's important here is, one of the things that you're always being told is to not open or click on links from emails, people that you don't know. And in this particular case, the colleague must have been infected, and it was sent out unbeknownst to the colleague. But anyway, going back to the small dealership group, the firewall did not stop it. The antivirus was protecting the computers, and despite that, they were able to encrypt every single server on the network. Now, they got lucky. The dealership group did not have to pay the ransom. The attackers did not get to their backups. Now, this was in 2019, so a few years ago, when ransomware was about an $11.5 billion industry. For reference, in 2021, it was a $20 billion industry, so a 2 times increase over just a few years. And one thing to note is that this is not just guys in hoodies down in basements. These people that are attacking are parts of real criminal organizations with full corporate structures and HR departments. This is billions of dollars worth of industries. So when you start thinking of hackers, stop thinking of some lone wolf in his mom's basement. And one thing that's also important to note is that hacking groups are now much better at destroying backups because they know if they can get those, they will get bigger payoffs. Another interesting thing that's starting to come out, and kind of a scary thing, is that insurance companies are now beginning to deny claims without the proof of due diligence. So one of the situations that we had heard was the insurance company actually sent 2 adjusters out, one to go over the forensic information and to make a determination on the scope of the loss, and then they sent another one out to actually go over what was being done and determine whether or not there was a basis to deny the claim. So that is something that is definitely happening. Going back to phishing, and this is really one of the most common ways that companies are getting infected. 1 in 17 users was phished, according to the State of the Phish report. That's the generally accepted number out of your total number of users that you can expect to get phished. Now, out of those, 1 in 5 users will click a malicious link. Now, that is based on data from that same report, but also data that when we do phishing tests, that tends to hold up, that about 20% or so will actually click on those links. And so in doing so, the user clicked on the link, the hackers were able to get past the antivirus, and they accessed a single system. Now, once they were on that system, they were able to use various methods, vulnerabilities and patches that probably were not installed, but they were able to spread to all the connected computers and the servers. So they got the keys to the kingdom. Now, in this situation, they didn't pay, but just because they didn't pay doesn't mean that it didn't cost them significantly. This dealership, because they had their backups, they decided they were not going to negotiate with the ransom demanding entity, which is good, because typically when it's determined that you're a company that's willing to pay ransoms, you become an even bigger target than you were before. So not only are you not obscure anymore, but you're also a known target. But in this instance, the company paid over $500,000 in hard costs to get operational again. And so what they ended up doing was buying an entirely new network and starting from scratch and getting set up. They were able to bring their stuff back online fairly quickly. Number one, they weren't held back by an insurance company that was demanding that all the network and all of the existing things not be touched because they're evidence, which is a common thing now. But they spent days of complete business interruption, loss of sales and service revenue. They had to explain to their customers that they were down, but this severely hindered their sales and service for even months afterwards. So what kind of dealers are at risk for this sort of thing? Well, the small dealers are at risk because typically they're not investing as heavily in security. They don't have as robust of a defense. The big dealership groups are just bigger targets, and they're being targeted. Dealers with everything in the cloud, a lot of people think that if their data and most of their information is in the cloud, that the cloud provider is responsible for it, and that's just simply not true. But you also become a target of a larger institution. So for instance, if you have everything in the Microsoft Azure cloud or the Amazon Web Services, you're a target by proxy because they're coming after these larger providers. Now, the larger providers do have a lot of defenses that they put up, but once again, nothing is 100% secure. So all dealers are at risk of this sort of compromise. And if they get your backups, a good question to ask yourself is, are you going to have to pay the ransom? And another important thing to note is that even when you do pay the ransom, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get your data back. It doesn't automatically mean that you can just restore your systems and keep on going down the road. Typically, you're still looking at pretty much a complete rebuild because of the concerns that hackers are going to install backdoors for that second go around with you. What can you do? The first thing is you need to make sure that more than antivirus is protecting your users' data and reputation. You may have heard the term defense in depth or a layered security approach. This is an example of the types of security layers you'll want to have in place, and you can't rely solely on technology to protect you. Some of these layers, like employee education, are incredibly cheap, and they actually provide the best defense. It is the hardest to get consistently, but in creating a culture of security, you improve your chances greatly. Number two, missing the warning signs. A lot of times there's some tip-offs of things that are not quite right on your network, or especially in your email. Business email compromise is another huge thing that is starting to really develop. It's different in ransomware in that typically on the business email compromise, they're performing some sort of fraudulent activity or trying to get somebody to wire money or pay invoices to the incorrect places. So here's some simple warning signs that your network is insecure. Number one, if you've experienced a breach, a data loss, or ransomware, please know lightning absolutely does strike twice. In fact, it strikes more often twice because once you become a known target, especially if you've paid a ransom, they're definitely going to be spreading the word that you're someone who pays. And once again, like I said, hackers will often leave backdoors so they can get right back in after they've compromised you once. So a big tip off is if you can log into your business email without being prompted for an access token on your phone or some other form of two-factor authentication, that is a huge warning sign that you are at risk. Spam and unwanted email is constantly appearing in your mailbox. If you notice that there's a huge uptick or a big change in that, that's going to be a sign that something has changed. Unfortunately, we can't get rid of all spam or all unwanted emails, but certainly if you start seeing a significant increase, that's going to be something that you're going to want to pay attention to. So this is an interesting statistic, is that 74% of organizations in the United States have experienced a successful phishing attack. So of that 74%, 65% of those experienced business email compromise, and 47% were infected with ransomware. So business email compromise, what will happen there in a lot of cases is they will, the hackers will sit there waiting for important information or requests for payments or things like that to come through. They will take that document, they'll modify it, change wiring instructions, change the phone number to call for more information, and they'll send it out or send it to you some way to get somebody on one side to pay them instead of the company or person that's supposed to be paid. So if you're getting a lot of warning messages or pop-ups, do not click them. Call your computer support and have somebody qualified to evaluate the situation, take a look at it, and verify whether or not this is something that goes beyond just a single click. So the last sign is mainly if you don't know what to do, if you see something like weird emails in your sent items, profile updates like an unexpected change of your phone number, a new signature on your email that appears that isn't yours, any kind of mail forwarders that's sending messages to the trash bin or to an outside person, or anytime you have a password change that's unexpected. And if you get locked out of your account, that's one thing, but if you keep noticing that you're having to get your password reset, that's a very good sign that you've been compromised. Part of this is that if there's no clear method to report a security incident, that is something that is a very big warning sign. What can you do about this? Well, number one, make sure everybody is on the lookout. Make sure everybody is part of the security stance. You need to have a documented way to get help, and make sure that everyone knows what to do in the event that something happens. Okay, so the last thing that we have to talk about is not seeking validation. And what do I mean there? Not seeking validation of your security stance or the position that you are in to weather an attack. Let me ask you this. Do you ever get x-rays at the dentist? Absolutely, everyone has. But why do you get x-rays? Typically, the dentist is going to order x-rays when you first see them, whether it looks like you need them or not, because there's going to be problems that you cannot detect with the naked eye. Have you ever had an x-ray of your network? What do I mean there? Well, have you ever had your security analyzed? We'll come in and we'll analyze your network. We'll meet with you and review the results, give you simple steps that you can take to protect yourself and your data.
So to recap,
if you're only using antivirus, if you've ever had a breach, data loss, or ransomware, if you can log into your business email without being prompted for an access token on your phone, if you could get spam and unwanted email constantly appearing in your mailbox, if you're getting warning messages or pop-ups, if you don't have a method to report a security incident, it's time to get a security analysis. I know you're thinking, well, this is security, this is computer stuff, that's not my job. To that, I'm going to ask you, who's going to be responsible for communicating to your clients if you have a data breach? Who's going to be responsible for communicating with the public, talking to the news? Who will be dealing with negotiating the ransom if you get ransomware? These responsibilities usually fall on the business owner's shoulders. And you may be thinking that you're too small. Well, going back to all businesses are at risk. Small dealers, the big dealership groups, dealers with everything in the cloud, everybody is at risk, and all classes of dealers have been breached. Would you ever proofread your own work? No, of course not. Well, why would you force your IT people to proofread their own work? We will not need administrative credentials. And another popular question that comes up is, do you need to get your IT department involved? Well, the best way I've found to say it is, it's really up to you. If you'd like to know how they're actually doing, you could do the evaluation without engaging them. If you'd like to give them a chance to prepare themselves, then by all means, let's get them engaged. But do you honestly think hackers are going to give your IT department a chance to prepare before they hack your network? Of course not. Not involving your IT department will give you a better view as to actually how you're doing. We're not going to install anything. We won't need credentials. We can do it through a simple email that will answer the question, what would happen if I'm phished? Once again, we're going to analyze your network. We'll meet with you and review the results. We'll give you simple steps you or your IT department can take to protect yourself and your data. So why are we doing this? We can't do this for everyone. We're actually only able to do about 3 of these free assessments per month. After the first 3, people who signed up will have to go on the wait list, or they can pay for the assessment. We usually charge $8,680 for this type of analysis. So why are we doing this for free? Well, because automotive. As I said before, I love automotive and I want to help protect this industry because dealerships are getting the reputation for being vulnerable in part because they run outdated software and they don't invest in robust enough safeguards. So much that an angry constituency has pressured their lawmakers into forcing the FTC to adopt new safeguards rules, and word is out in the legal community that dealerships, quote, know or should know about the risk because the automotive sector is particularly susceptible to cyber attack, end quote. So that's the wording in the class action lawsuit I referenced earlier in the presentation. To get your free third-party cybersecurity network analysis, go to northrockcybersecurity.com, click on the Contact Us button, and put X-Ray in the message. We'd love to talk to you, we'd love to meet you, and we'd love to help you out. Have a great day.